Hello, everyone. Welcome to Trenton Talks on IMG 1300 AM and Verizon WPHY. We're here with Trenton Talks, our TV radio broadcast this afternoon, this evening, talking about Mercer Street Friends, one of our Trenton Board of Ed partners right here in the capital city of Trenton, New Jersey. I'm your host, Gerald Trueheart. I serve on the Trenton Board of Education as Vice President, along with my colleagues on the board and our superintendent, Mr. James Earl. And I'm so happy to have Mercer Street Friends. We have Bernie Flynn, CEO of Mercer Street Friends, on with us this evening, as well as Bernadette Trapp, Director of Community Schools, and also former principal of Rivera Middle School at the time, and longtime favorite of ours in Trenton. We worked together many times, Bernadette, in Trenton Public Schools when I was employed there. Great leadership from you, and I'm sure you're happy in your retirement, but you didn't quite retire. You went over to Mercer Street Friends and as director of community schools and doing great work there. So Bernie, I wanted to ask you, would you be able to just give us an overview of Mercer Street Friends and also about the community schools initiative?
Well, thank you, Gerald, and we appreciate your leadership on the board, your engagement and commitment, and that you invited us onto this program today. Mercer Street Friends has been around since 1958. You know, that's more than 64 years. We're a Quaker-based organization, and we have always been a social service organization. Over the past few years, we have been all about food, family, and education. Many people don't know we are the designated food bank for Mercer County, and we also do a lot of family support programming in our family and parenting program. But today, primarily we're going to talk about community schools. And frankly, the community schools initiative that was started in large part because Bernadette Trapp was, the spirited, willing principal to begin this work in Trenton, is what drew me to the organization. I retired from the corporate space back in 2018. I wanted to get involved in educational pursuits, particularly in the city. And I saw the work that Mercer Street Friends was doing. And the community school model was something that once I learned about it, and Bernadette's going to tell us more, I realized that it is, a tremendous vehicle, tremendous initiative by which we can bring extra supports to our children and their families and to the school leadership teams and staff and teachers in order to reduce barriers to learning and help our children get that boost academically and socially that they need. Of course, I started in February 2020. A month later, the pandemic hit, and everything changed. So because we're the food bank of Mercer County, really the focus became, how are we delivering and supporting the community through food distribution and doing the best we could with the district in, engaging our students from a virtual standpoint. Now that we're back in session, our community school initiative, has really taken off, and we have great expectations for it in partnership, with the district. And we were so thrilled when Bernadette announced her retirement, which she'll say, I think I'll get ahead of her, that she delayed her retirement a year because of the pandemic, because she had unfinished business and the students and the staff really needed her. But within 3 weeks after she had retired, she joined us as our director of community schools. So she just can't get it out of her blood. And we are so thrilled that she's a leader on our team. And we think that, through that leadership, we've got the ability to really support, the district and the students and the families for many years to come.
Bernie, I know you say that she retired and everything, but she really didn't retire. She just transitioned to a new program and a new avenue of supporting kids and supporting the city of Trenton. And we love Bernadette Trapp for the work that she's done in the city, especially in the educational arena and other community engagement arenas. But we didn't lose Bernadette. You gained a great asset to your team and Bernadette, you're doing great work over at Mercer Street Friends as Director of Community Schools. And we miss you at Trenton. However, we still have you because you've been working with Gregory now and MLK and starting out at your school where you were principal, Louis Rivera, at that time middle school, but now elementary school. Tell us about your journey.
Thank you for having us. Thank you, Bernie, for those kind words. Like you said, I wasn't ready to give it up. I have a passion for the kids at Trenton. And as I said to you yesterday, every now and then I get a little choked up when I think about how only a couple of miles away live very affluent people, and yet our kids want and need for so much in Trenton. So I felt that this was a perfect way for me to stay engaged and to stay in the educational field, but through a different lens, and to support all of the schools the best that we could. So a little bit about Mercer Street and my relationship. Back when I went to Luis Munoz Rivera Middle School in 2015, was when the superintendent at the time went back to traditional 6th, 7th, and 8th grade schools. And I just happened to be invited to a meeting with then Dr. Shannon Mason, who was the CEA of Mercer Street Friends and leadership in Trenton School District. And through that relationship, a partnership was born. I welcomed the idea of becoming a community school. Mercer Street Friends made a commitment to me that they never wavered from. Even when they had some difficult times financially, they committed to always being the lead agency supporting Rivera School. Our relationship grew over time. I looked forward to partnering with somebody that was going to help me address, as Bernie said, those non-academic barriers, the things that were getting in the way of us doing what we're supposed to do, teaching and learning. And it was a great relationship. We flourished, we grew, we were able to honestly move the needle, not as far as I would have liked to academically, but we started to move the needle academically at Rivera. We definitely lowered our suspension rates and we increased our attendance rate. And then the pandemic hit. And when the pandemic hit, we all had to pivot. And I had to pivot to learning how to oversee a school that was entirely virtual. And I needed to how do I engage with families that we weren't coming in contact with physically? And Mercer Street stepped up. My staff at the time, under the leadership of Chelsea Jenkins, was wonderful. They put together Facebook pages. They were calling parents. They were delivering food to families. They were meeting with parents at night on Facebook just to kind of say, hey, let's take a few deep breaths. Let's do some yoga. Let's talk, because we realized our parents were just as, if not more stressed than their children. You know, some of them lost their jobs. They were suffering from food insecurities. They had their children full-time in the homes, and now they were expected to be quasi-educators. It was a very difficult time for everybody. When I finally made the leap and did retire back in 2021, I have to keep remembering when it was, and Bernie came to me, I thought this was a great opportunity to continue with the work I'm doing. And it was fortunate because I was able to learn from some of the mistakes we made as a partner with Mercer Street and to really redevelop the community school movement at the schools. We started out at Luis Munoz Rivera. We actually were board approved to become community middle school because we wanted to honor the fact that we were a community school. We advanced into Gregory School, and then last year we moved into Martin Luther King Elementary School. As you say, this past summer everything changed. So now we're still in Gregory, which is K-3. We're at Martin Luther King, which is now middle school 7 and 8, and we are still at Rivera, which is now K-3. Our principals have been wonderful at working with us. We have a site coordinator at each school. Each site coordinator's responsibility is to be the partner of the principal. We serve on the school leadership team, attendance teams, INRS if they need us. We also have a case manager at each school. So we have 2 full-time staff members dedicated to the school that work at the school full-time. Our principals have given us space, and their staff has embraced us as one of their own. So what are some of the things we do? Our main job is to help the principals identify via informal and formal needs assessments what are the needs of the school. These needs can range everything from academic needs, attendance needs, social emotional, mental health, food insecurity, basic life necessity, housing, job opportunities. We're there to help in every way. We do case management with parents. We meet with parents, we connect them to resources, we follow up, and we try to keep them engaged with whatever community providers are out there, such as Henry J. Austin, Mill Hill Mental Health Center, Kinder Smiles. Princeton Blairstown Center is one that we work closely with for our older kids. Bonners of Rutgers and the Bonners of TCNJ, as well as the College of New Jersey as a whole, and some homegrown vendors that like to do things in the schools but need to be able to get into the school. So we've been working with them. I've had my staff trained in something called Zones of Regulation, which is a curriculum developed by an educator that teaches children how to learn to regulate their emotions. Gregory School has also adopted that program, and they've had their entire school staff trained. We have introduced it to our other two schools, and we work with the schools to identify students that struggle with managing their own emotions and behaviors. And we run the curriculum in small groups. We run attendance team meetings. We have mentoring support for the middle school kids for attendance. We also see the need to celebrate. So we celebrate attendance every month at the schools. We have had banners that have been created that we hang outside the doors of the classrooms that have outstanding attendance in every grade level. And then we give out treats so that we're celebrating the positive and we're supporting where the struggles lie. We have a variety of small groups, leadership groups at each school. We have girls groups, boys groups. We've partnered with the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts. We've partnered with Boys and Girls Club. So these are just a small inkling of the things we do. It's the holiday season, and we recognize a need to support the families. We have received a wonderful donation from the Bloomberg organization, where we have winter coats at all three of our schools for students. We are in the process of organizing food distribution for the families for the holidays, 25 families at each school. And each school is doing something for their families for the holiday season. And we support all of those things. The principals come to us and ask, we say yes. We even jumped into the academic area. We employ 6 retired teachers from Trenton. 3 are at Gregory and 3 are at Rivera. They utilize the district's leveled literacy intervention program, and they do intervention groups 4 to 5 days a week at every school. So we are doing our best to support each school the best that we can in the things that they need.
Amen. That's excellent. You know, one of the things that I gleaned from some of the work that you're doing, some of the mottos that Mercer Street Friends has for the Community Schools Partnership Initiative is believing that all students can learn and reach their highest academic and social potential. So it's about social, emotional, academic learning. And then this one here believes that the environment for learning is safe, rigorous, and inclusive while embracing the cultural diversity of this involving the entire school community. I mean,
you're right. When you talk about that and involving everybody in the community and the safety and the inclusivity, we do summer programming, and we do it at all 3 of our schools. Our target is always somewhere between 60 to 75 students. With all the restructuring last year, we kind of fell off our mark because we couldn't use our own space at the time. But we are full-time 6 weeks out of the summer, Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. But this year we did something different. This year, besides hiring Trenton teachers, the principals select the teachers, we also hired native Trentonian vendors to do things like an arts club. And we needed some junior counselors, so we hired Trenton Central High School students. So we employed Trenton High students to be our counselors this summer, along with the College of New Jersey and Rider students. So we had a nice cross section of ages and levels of people here from Trenton that were part of our summer program. So our children got to see many people who represented them and their culture in many avenues of life. And it led to a much richer summer program, having the high school and the college kids on board, because they're a little closer in age than the teachers to some of our children. And they see them and they ask questions about college. They ask questions about high school. And that's what it is creating that culture that your education doesn't end at 5th grade or 6th grade, that you have many, many years to go. And that's a culture we need to keep creating in Trenton so that everybody understands it doesn't stop. Learning continues forever. But to see other kids learning, older kids that look like them, made a big difference this summer.
You know, and learning continues in the summertime. I think, you know, the summer opportunity that Bernadette leads is so impactful for our students. And we like focusing on, you know, the elementary school. I mean, we did the summer program, you know, for 7th and 8th graders as well. But the summer program for the elementary school students, they have so much fun while they're together with their peers and they're playing and they're doing trips. They're fully engaged, and we want them to want to continue to come back to the summer program. So we want to follow them all the way through to high school in that regard. But our summer program is very, very strong. We're going to continue to grow it. We even do summer programming for the one preschool Mercer Street Friends has. And the children in the preschool love the summer program. And we make sure it's fun, but they are learning at the same time. The mornings are dedicated to academic work. The afternoons are enrichment type activities, and Friday's always a fun Friday. So I just appreciate Bernadette's leadership there. I know how important it is generally, and particularly now coming out of the pandemic, where there's been, you know, learning loss across the board. This enables our children to get a little bit of a boost academically as well as socially and have some fun at the same time.
You know, let's talk a few minutes about the financing and the funding that help to support the children and to be able to give us that synergy of parents and students and faculty and staff and students from college and coming in and working, Trenton High students coming to work. You know, back in 1919, with the funding from the Princeton Area Community Foundation grant, was $3 million grant given out to about 10 different participants around the county. But you were able to use that money to implement or continue to implement the Achieve and Succeed program, and also to continue building your existing program of Check and Connect program. Are those programs fluent now and continue to flourish in terms of supporting the students and the parents?
Yes. And Bernadette, let me give a little bit of an overview on the financing and the financial support for the programs, which is my primary responsibility as the CEO of Mercer Street Friends. I promised Bernadette that I will have the money for her to run these programs. And Gerald, you're absolutely right. The Princeton Area Community Foundation has been a terrific leader in this area. You know, the $3 million that they dedicated, not just into the city of Trenton, but you know, throughout the Mercer County community, through their All Kids Thrive undertaking. We were recipients of some of those funds. Other organizations, the Trenton School District was the recipient of some of those funds. And we have great confidence that the Princeton Area Community Foundation is going to continue to support activity like the community school initiative, like the chronic absenteeism programs, that we provide. In fact, we just received a grant from the Princeton Area Community Foundation for both ourselves and the Boys and Girls Club to further the community school activities. But we also seek funding from the federal government, the U.S. Department of Education. The Boys and Girls Club and Mercer Street are collaborating on that particular grant, and we should receive word on that before the end of the year. There are other sources of federal funding that we can access with the help of the school district. It's called ESSER funding, and that is available for our children. And there's a lot of private philanthropy that's very interested in supporting the education of our students in Trenton. So there's private money, there's government money, there's money that can funnel through the school district, and we just know that if we are impactful and helping remove barriers to our students' learning, that we can raise the money to successfully support these programs.
Since 2017, right? That's when you first started, with the Community Schools Initiative. But that's 5 years, and the expansion to 2 additional schools, and then, of course, I'm sure plans to expand even further. Bernadette, you were going to chime in?
I was just going to, like you said about the Princeton Area Community Foundation. Yes, we're in our final year of the grant, as you're aware, because the district was also a recipient of All Kids Thrive. And while we had to make some changes because because of the summer restructuring of the district, we actually put together a much more holistic and thorough approach to addressing absenteeism. Everything from, like I said, rewarding the middle school kids, to supporting the middle school kids, to mentoring the middle school kids, to having incentives for our most chronically absent to come to school. So we have a very nuts to bolts type of thing that we have in place for our final year with that grant. So yes, we are continuing to utilize and take advantage of that money so that we can do our best to get things up and running, which is they are right now at the middle school when it comes to chronic absenteeism.
That was one of the major areas that we wanted to focus on. As a matter of fact, in our 5-year strategic plan with Trenton Board of Ed, which was community driven, driven by the community and stakeholders like yourselves, attendance, focusing on attendance, is in our academic section, right? Academic, our student achievement section. One of those points is around student attendance, which drives academic performance and drives academic achievement. And so I say that because, in that Check and Connect program, as I recall, it's focused on chronic absenteeism, as well as providing new services to address key factors that contribute to absenteeism throughout the educational process. So it's not just about, hey, come to school. It's about how do we support, whether it be transportation, whether it be food insecurity, like you said, whether it be family members, economic issues and challenges. There's a multitude of challenges that families face here in the city of Trenton that may preclude or even hinder students from attending school. And so we're going to break down those barriers and provide support services to those families that need it, so those students can flourish in school and come to school every day to learn and to achieve.
And yes, so with our chronic absenteeism, specifically at the middle school, because we use mentors, it's in tiers. Tier 1 is simply we reward people. 7th and 8th grade compete monthly to see who gets the banner and who gets the treat. At the end of the first marking period, there will be a party for the kids that had 100% attendance. But then the kids that are down at what we're calling the second tier, those kids that are the kids we want to push over the hump, that are almost there, they meet weekly in small groups with my staff. And we have incentives built in, but we also have conversations. What's the problem? You don't get up in the morning? Here's so-and-so. He can call you each morning. Let's work together and find solutions to the challenges and the obstacles you face, all the way down to mentors that work with the kids that have an even greater attendance issue, and us, my staff, engaging in conversations with parents sometimes. What's really the problem here? Why aren't we coming to school? So you're correct. We're trying to tackle it from so many different angles just to say it's important to come to school. And the simplest thing that we did, I did not create it. I stole this from Hedgepeth Williams. So I'm going to give credit to Adrian for this, were the postcards. We purchased postcards for all 3 of our schools. We sent them home after the first attendance team meeting to let parents know, hey, where you been? And the number of parents that came into King Middle School saying, what do you mean they're not in school? With their postcard made a difference. And it shocked me that something so simple really made such a difference. So we're trying to tackle this from all angles, because it is not just I don't want to go to school tomorrow problem. There are a lot of issues why our children aren't coming to school.
Yes, thank you so much, Bernadette. Bernie Flynn, thank you so much. We're at the end of this segment of our program, and so happy and thankful for Mercer Street Friends. Bernie, thank you so much for allowing us to come into your home and to have you come and speak to us here on Trenton Talks TV radio broadcast. And Bernadette, I appreciate you as well, being a part of the team and here in Trenton and right here at Trenton Board of Ed. And you guys have been a tremendous partner in our city, not just for the Trenton Board of Ed and for our students, but also for parents and the entire focus on our community, building our community back better. And so I look forward to additional conversations. This is not the end. We have to continue to work and continue to communicate about and share about the great work over at Mercer Street Friends and all the other partnerships that you've been able to garner and build around the community school initiative. And I'm praying that next year you open up to another school and perhaps we do a school a year. I know that's a you need money and funding for that, right? But
that's part of the vision. Part of the vision.
Our strategic plan calls for us to have, I believe, one community school in each section of the city each year. So that was what our strategic plan shared, was the goal and objective of the community school model. And I believe that we're on track because we have Rivera under Mercer Street Friends in the partnership with Trenton Board of Ed. We have MLK and Gregory. Those are 3 schools. And I believe they're almost in 3 different sections of the city. Let's see. So you have MLK. Yes, MLK is in the north.
And so is Rivera.
So Rivera. But then you have Gregory, which is in the west.
Correct.
So we're almost there. We're getting there with your help. We're meeting our objective and our strategic plan. And so I know the superintendent, Mr. Earl, is very happy with you and all the board members and the rest of our community and the parents that you serve in our community. So I want to thank you, Bernie Flynn, CEO of Mercer Street Friends, as well as Bernadette Trapp, Director of Community Schools at Mercer Street Friends. Thank you so much. And we look forward to additional conversation with you in the future.
Thanks for having us.
God bless you. Thank you for having us.
God bless you. Next up, we're going to have Darren Freedom Green coming on the broadcast this evening. He's going to be sharing about the election, the municipal election. This took place on November the 8th here in the capital city of Trenton, New Jersey. But of course, it was a general election, not just for the capital city, but for Mercer County and for Congress here in the United States of America, our U.S. Congress. So we want to make sure that we share some information with you around the work here in the capital city. So Darren Freedom Green will be joining us very, very shortly on our broadcast this afternoon or this evening. I want to thank each and every one of you for being a part of our broadcast today, sponsored by WIMG 1300 AM and WPHY Verizon Channel 28. We air on or rebroadcast on WIMG 1300 AM at 7 p.m. on Tuesday evenings and on WPHY Verizon Channel 28 at 11 p.m. on Thursday evening. So if you want, you can hear us on the radio, different broadcast channels, as well as on TV. And we're live here on Facebook and YouTube on Tuesdays at 5:30 p.m., 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. So you can get all the information, all the news related to our Trenton Board of Education and public schools, and also issues and challenges and opportunities that we have around the capital city of Trenton, New Jersey. So we're going to just take a pause right now, take a little break, pause right now, waiting for our next guest to come on board. Thank you so much. God bless. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We're just waiting for Mr. Darren Freeman Green to come on, a community activist and local community activist here in the capital city of Trenton, New Jersey. We're going to be having a conversation around the election results from our November 8th election, both council at large, both the North Ward, South Ward, East Ward, West Ward, as well as the mayor's election here in the capital city of Trenton, New Jersey. But one of the things that we need to be mindful of is that we had a very low voter turnout this particular session, and it's historically we've had low voter turnout. And so we want to discuss a couple of things around low voter turnout as how we can improve that. Why one of the questions that we're going to be driving the conversation this afternoon, this evening, is why Trenton low voter turnout for the general election, and what is the strategic thinking to improve civic engagement in our capital city. The other issue is with the unofficial results from the Trenton municipal election, where at-large seats have a runoff, number one, and what about the North and South Ward runoffs? How should candidates and voters respond to, number one, the runoff elections, and how voters will be engaged in the next round of elections scheduled for the first week of December. And also, third question, with Gutierrez's second term, our mayor, Reed Gutierrez, should citizens expect an immediate improvement in the relationship and moving the mayor's agenda forward? And also a question around what should the priorities be for the council's first 100 days? Amen. So we're going to be having those conversations with Darren Freeman Green. Also on the election, November 8th, was a Trenton municipal question. And that question was around a school board type 1 or type 2. That won by a vote. I'm not sure I can't remember what the vote was in terms of that particular vote. But the yeses won out in that vote. So yes, we'll be moving to an elected board. Here was the question that was raised by the council that was approved, the question that was approved by the council to come to a vote as a referendum on the November 8th agenda or a ballot. The ballot reads, shall the Board of Education of the City of Trenton, a type 1 district appointed by the mayor, be changed to a type 2 district with its members elected by the voters? Under which change the Board of School Estimate will be eliminated. Future bonding for capital projects would have to be approved by a public referendum. That future bonding for capital projects would be based on the credit of the district as opposed to the city. And so the question is about elected board versus an appointed board. And the voters this November 8th voted for an elected school board. And so the question is, what's better, elected school board or an appointed school board? Well, the voters said that they want to elect a school board. And I think primarily most of that was driven around a democratic process of electing their school board leaders. Now, I know that council has put forth various reasons for moving to an elected school board, talking about financial, and as well as opportunities around student achievement. However, we have the stellar financial records for the city of Trenton, Board of Education, excellence in financial reporting, as well as clean audits. And the student achievement is improving. However, we know that for the last 50 years, we've had challenges around student achievement in our school district, but we are working with our community partners. We're working with our businesses and working with our school district employees and our school district parents to engage with them to improve our student achievement. And the pandemic didn't help, and it kind of slowed us down to a screeching halt in terms of social emotional learning. And so we're building back better, providing our students with social emotional supports in all of our schools. We also have redistricting to lower our class size. In some situations that has in fact happened. In other situations, we need to work on improving that because we anticipated a lower number of enrolled students, and that particular estimate was superseded. And so we have a lot more students now in our district and continue to come into our district to receive a stellar education in our district. Darren Freedom Green, God bless you, my brother. Good to see you this evening. How are you doing this morning? How are you doing this evening?
I'm good. How are you, beloved?
I'm doing good, man. Glad to have you this evening. Kind of laid out the program for this evening.
No doubt.
Conversation around the election November 8th. I know right now I do have a sheet that shows me still unofficial results, unless you heard something different as of November 14th. I do have a printout. It does say still unofficial results
Correct.
From the election. But we have some serious questions that we wanted to ask this evening and have a conversation about.
No doubt.
And number one was, why the Trenton low voter turnout for a general election, and what is the strategic thinking to improve civic engagement? So we have Darren Freedom Green on tonight, social activist, community activist, trainer, community partner, my brother, my friend, Darren Freedom Green.
Good evening. So let's get right to it. So first and foremost, we don't know the history. So we want to get right to the tactical and strategic reality of revitalization, rebuilding the disconnect between civic duty, civic responsibility. And the first thing we have to do when we look at public school systems, whether they be Trenton, Camden, Philadelphia, Newark, New York, is rebuild the bridge to our majestic ancestors. No one in this generation, or very few, know the plight, pain, and progress of 1965 with the Voting Rights Act. So again, when you don't know what your ancestors did, you don't give thought to the responsibility of what you must do. And again, when we talk, and you and I have had numerous conversations, something very fundamental in terms of in Trenton, if we were to drive around all four sides of the city and have a conversation or ask the question, who is Miss Hedgepath? Who is Miss Williams? Most people would not know, because that history is not being taught. So if that history is not being taught, then it's not a reference point for the majestic excellence of those that came before you. And they did not come before you to dance or entertain or to work, but they literally put their lives on the line. So the fundamental foundation and rights that we have now are in place. And if we knew that, we would have a higher reverence for them, our responsibility to them, but more importantly, our responsibility for now. So teaching the history is the first piece. So we have a reference point of where we come from and where we need to go. The second piece is Dr. King's Give Us the Ballot lays the foundation for what politics is about. It touches on 5 critical areas: education, economics, housing, healthcare, social justice. And as long as people see the political arena as personalities and people instead of those 5 fundamental areas, there's always going to be a disconnect. I was with Pastor Buster Sores yesterday. He said one of the things that moved him into understanding politics and moved him into moving in the political arena, he was in his community as a young man, 10, 11 years old, and he in some way made a trip and went to another part of the city he was in, and he saw that the park he played in was distraught, beat up, just horrible, right? And when he went to the park in another area, he saw the difference, and he began to question, well, there's a portion or population of people living differently from where I'm living. I need to know why that's happening so I can begin to understand how that process needs to happen so we can bring that to where we are. And that probably is one of the greatest storylines you can use when you begin to teach Black and brown people of the importance of politics. Because again, we've now relegated it to election cycles. No, politics is the fundamental foundation on making sure the social arena that we exist in those 5 critical areas, we have a voice in, and we're making sure we're being heard, we're being accounted for. And the way I always teach it, bro, is I say, what is the census, right? So the census is an accounting process of who do we have? And what happens when we don't vote, when we don't show up, when we don't hold ourselves accountable, then the allocation of resources doesn't come to us because our voices aren't in the room when they're making an account for that. So when we begin to teach in that area on how important voting is and participating in the electoral cycle, which really is year round. What I mean by that is, yeah, you vote once, but think about the voting cycles. People are so engaged, so empowered, so analytical when the election is occurring. And then when it's over, they go back to sleep. So how did you have all these questions, all this energy, all this creative thinking and critical thinking about who you are, what you want this individual to do, but then you go back to sleep? No, actually, when you elect that person, that's when the real work begins. So we have to parallel that. And then the last piece is we've got to get away from waiting on the Democratic Party to do for us what we must do for ourselves. Think about the cycle. I'm not going to beat up on anybody because you my man, and I know you'll have to pay for it if I go in on somebody's jugular. But think about this last cycle. People knew about the transitioning and what was put out there in terms of going from appointed to elected. How many people of an elected official capacity, how many people who are in the leadership realm of the Democratic Party put anything out? I know one person did, but she didn't.
Yeah.
I know one person did. But even in doing that, she put it out in the 4th quarter. She knew when you knew when that occurred, right? So a whole, 2 years you and I have been fighting this fight in the streets trying to educate and move people. And part of political astuteness, part of a political awareness is just being exposed to what is, right? So if everybody who has a platform uses their platform when it's convenient to them, how about if they're using it year round to put light on issues like this? And I think until we get to a place where we literally go out, educate, empower, have community forums and workshops where we're teaching our communities about what is happening and what needs to happen, then it won't transform. And I think the last piece is this: there is no easy way out. And one of the things I said to Pastor Soares yesterday when we were in a forum about civics and civic duty, I said social media is a great tool, right? Because it gives you immediate access to information and people. But what we've gotten away from is talking and touching one another. We've got to get back to the dialogue and conversations, the hand-on-hand work of talking into each other and then listening to each other. Because somebody was on Facebook, right? And then we had a conversation in person. And it was about 5 people collectively together. And know what they said? I said, well, they were screaming about elected. I said, okay. Tell me what school you've worked with, what school you're volunteering in, what principal have you worked with? Crickets. Who's our new superintendent? Crickets. Tell me 2 board members you've talked to, you've discussed your issues and concerns with, and you're working with them to produce a resolution to address the issue, policy, or concern. Crickets. So I said, if you haven't done any work, why do you think there's going to be any form of transformation and change? And what happened is political pundits who are in the arena now, but are on their way out, I won't even say their names because I don't want to give them no attention. They threw this idea out there as if elected boards were going to be the immediate transformation of what we have. No, what you have is a marginalized and oppressed community which does not have a value system for education and the institution of education. We've got to build that. What you have is parents who left the school system early for jobs, resources, funding, whatever they had to do in their adult world, right? They didn't get a chance to finish off their educational journey. So for many of them, they don't have a value for education. And I'm not knocking parents. I'm just saying the reality that's there. If something didn't help you get to where you thought you should have gone, you don't have a value for it. So when your child comes along, you emit or give those same mannerisms to your child. And if that thing now turns itself around, like what Brother Gene is trying to do with Mercer County Community College, and engage adults at a certain level where they can begin to get certifications and change the economic reality from 30, 40 to maybe 50, 60, now you begin to see education as a tool that allows you to move towards true liberation, freedom, and economic empowerment. Right now in our community, we don't have that. So those 4 fundamental pillars are how we begin to transform this thing, because people really think now that you've changed the dynamics of an elected board, our school system is going to turn over overnight. And they don't have work gloves on, and they're not even looking to do the work that you and I know needs to be done. So to me, they've now created another layer, because now what they think is going to happen isn't going to happen, because the people who need to show up to work to do the work aren't even here.
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely takes boots on the ground to get that work done. Many hours. And a lot of folks don't recognize or understand that the board is not a paid position. It's actually volunteer. There is no money remuneration in terms of payment for you as a board member. So folks need to make sure they understand the dynamic that is volunteer, and that you have a responsibility, amen, to really focus on the kids. The kids got to come first, man. The kids have to be your focus. And if you continue to focus on the kids, then you make the right decisions. But a lot of folks in the elected cycle do this thing with politics. You know, it's a political thing, not a political relationship thing. No, it's not about the politics. It's about the kids. And so I think that's why one of the reasons why back in the 70s and 80s, why they took it out, they voted it out and said, no, elections are over. We want to appoint a board, because of the dynamics of politics in the city of Trenton that was dysfunctional, just like the dysfunction we had in the past council, that voted that in to go to a referendum to be an elected board. So you see the dynamic of a dysfunctional organization that's now out, thank God, but that put in place another cycle potentially of dysfunction at our district level. And we're praying that we get the right people out who are going to run for elected office as a school board member, who have the same heart and the same dedication that the current board members have for our city.
No doubt. And I would just say, as we continue this dialogue, I know you have other questions, we now have to go and be proactive and not reactive. And what I mean by that is we now need to begin to deal with the tedious process of producing the candidates who can run. Why? We know where we are. So we need to get out in front of it. And we're not trying to manipulate or control, but what we're saying is, if we're in a particular position, we're not going to allow ourselves to be victimized by that position, but we're going to get into a position where we can make the decisions, shape that condition. So again, many people, and this is what I was saying when I was on the streets, I said, in many districts, you see school board members banning books. That is a part of that political agenda we do not want to be a part of. When you have people coming in who are being put into play by people with big money who want to control. The school board is a powerful pawn in the chess of life. And what you don't want to have happen is what you alluded to, the politics of it. And then 2, you don't want the wrong individuals coming in to take our district and run it in the wrong direction. When we really have, in my image and my perspective, individuals who are on that board who are committed to doing great work by doing what they're designed to do. The board doesn't teach in one school. The board doesn't control parents. The board is in that city hall. And the same individuals, and I don't even want to go here, but I'm going to go here, who voted against the funding of our school system had a nerve to come to events and act like they were celebrating our district. I mean, you can't get any more hypocritical than that.
I'm going to say OMG on that one, brother.
What I'm saying is that's what we're up against, and then people don't realize that.
You know what? I just wanted to share, the voters for the elected versus the Trenton municipal question, yes votes was 3,191 to 1,468 no, 68.49 unofficial, 68.49% yes, 31.51% no on that Trenton municipal question on elected versus appointed board. I just wanted to share that out. I mentioned that earlier, didn't have it right in front of me at the time, but I had that. I was able to research that based on the unofficial results that I received from the Mercer County, New Jersey Board of Elections on our general election November the 8th. and wanted to share the information out so folks understand and know who voted. And I'm just going to say who, but what the vote was and the percentages.
Right.
And
I
about
would say
70-30.
I would say this to you, beloved. If we were to go back and survey most of those people, they didn't understand the verbiage of how that question was asked. Because again, most when I talked about on social media didn't even know the question was on there. So again, we needed an army, right, to be working on this 2 years out saying, here's what this is, here's what it means, here's how you need to vote on it. Not because we were trying to convert or recruit, but to say to them, listen, this question is framed in a difficult manner, and you need to understand how it is. So when you go in there, you have the correct response that you want to give. But I would say two things happened. People weren't aware. And then two, when they went in, I know a lot of people called me and the verbiage confused them because that was the first time they were reading it. It says on the bottom, interpretive statement, but if nobody's walked through that with you, and again, most who deal with the verbiage of election cycles only deal with it when we get to an election cycle, then it can be confusing. And a lot of times when we get confused, you know what we do. We back away, don't answer it. So how many went in and didn't touch that question? So we're up against it. We're up against it.
Exactly. I want to circle back to one of the pillars you mentioned about civic engagement. And on December the 19th, on Monday, we're going to have over at Joyce Kilmer Elementary School, Laura Wooten Civic Education Day. Let's do civics over there with our great principal over there, Paula Bethea, and Vice Principal Brittany Thomas. So that's an opportunity for folks, amen, to come out and be involved with the Laura Wooten Civic Education Day, Let's Do Civics. And I think, as we know, the law, amen, around civics in education is a part of that Laura Wooten law. So very important to our city, and we're going to be celebrating that. It's important for our elementary school students and all of our students to be engaged civically. It's a mandate that we teach civics in school. And so I think that speaks to that need that you mentioned in terms of those 5 pillars and the things that you just shared about how we have to engage not only our parents, right, in our community, but our kids so they can grow up and understand the dynamics of voting and the fact that resource allocation is important because those folks who are elected are voting on your resources, just like the vote that you mentioned about school board taxes. That was an elected board who voted to withhold millions of dollars from the school district for political reasons and not for the benefit of the student. So there you have it. You got to make your vote count.
Right. And I think when we look at Mrs. Wooten, the elder who transitioned on, Princeton has honored her by naming one of their institutions behind her. So again, when you talk about these people, and I want to talk 2 perspectives here, the ancestors who came before us, they understood what it was. Part of our problem, beloved, is we think, and I'm just speaking now in particularly of Black and brown people, because that's the dominant population in our public schools, right? We think we have arrived. And what we don't realize is we're not even on the field. And until you move with that fierce urgency of now that Dr. King, that Mrs. Wooten, and our ancestors moved with, nothing won't change. We were unwavering in working towards our rights because we understood there were laws that literally said we could not participate in certain aspects of society, and we had to fight to get those rights. So when you start thinking that you've arrived or you've made it or there's no longer a struggle, then you move with a level of complacency. And I'll close with this one on this point. One of the most powerful things Dr. King did, when people don't remember it, you do, that he injected the babies into the movement. You saw children in paddy wagons, and when they were interviewed, they said, "Where are you going?" "I'm going to jail." "Why are you going to jail?" "Freedom." So when the babies understand what we're up against and they become soldiers in the army for liberation, it changes the dynamic because now as adults, you can't sit on the sideline when children are participating. And I've never found any other tool than a parent to see their child working and grinding and inspiring and being great and not want to join them in that struggle. And we're in a struggle, like you talked about it earlier. Nobody's talking about why redistricting occurred. That's a civic issue. We need an allocation of resources and funding so we really can build a new high school. We need a new high school. We need about 2 more middle schools, and nobody's dialoguing about that. They're saying dumb things like, yeah, an elected board is going to take care of that. No, we have a population that's growing, and the school board is trying to manage the crisis that is simply happening in front of us. I didn't hear one council member. I didn't hear one mayoral candidate talk about what redistricting was, what it is, and how it directly is impacted by civics. In the townships, they are screaming for their rights, and they fight for it year round. In the city, the board members are blamed, the community doesn't show up, and then at home, we are so disconnected from the truth that we need to be applying. It is an uphill battle. So we got work to do, beloved.
Oh, yes, indeed, my brother. There was an article, I'm going to switch the gears a little bit here. There's an article in Trentonian. I'm going to read a quote from that article. It was on November the 10th, 2022, out of the Trentonian. It says, current totals represent a staggering low turnout. Again, they say in Trenton, with just 6,475 votes for mayor. Total voter numbers is not yet available, but most voters in Trenton cast a vote for mayor. So that's an indicator of roughly how many Trenton ballots were cast. 2014, this election saw 10,434 voters, and 2018 had 9,058 ballots cast. So that's kind of give a little perspective on the historical turnout in Trenton, from 6,475 for mayor, 10,000 again, 434 in 2014, and in 2018, 9,058. But one of the questions we want to raise and talk about also this evening is a question around the runoffs, potential runoffs, based on these unofficial results. At the at-large, there's some conversation around at-large seats having a runoff, which is somewhat, I think, unheard of in Trenton in terms of historical and what we've done, at least in the last cycle. And what about the North and the South runoffs? How should candidates and voters respond? I believe the election for runoff will be on December the 6th. So that's around the corner, and folks have to wake up to this cycle of runoffs. What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, let's be real clear. In the West, we have Mrs. Frisbee, who got 50%. So she's going to be the representative. In the East, the incumbent, Joe Harrison, got 50%. He's going to be the incumbent. Our up in the air places are North and South, where I think the voter numbers weren't 50% one, and then they were very close as always. So, and then the last,
I'll give you those numbers in the South. Unofficial results as of yesterday. Malav Damien has in the South 48.32%. And Jennifer Williams in the North has 31.42%. Followed by in the North, Algernon Ward with 27.55%, followed by Merkle Cherry, 22.26%, and Devon Allow 18.77%. And then back to the South Ward, Orgorigi has about 9%, and Jenna Figueroa has about 42.2%. So those are the results. So no one in those two particular sections of Trenton, wards of Trenton, as they call them, North or South, have enough for 50+1.
Right. So you're probably more than likely going to have runoffs in those two wards. And then they're trying to figure out, and this again is why it's so important to have people in position that know what they're doing. I am not demeaning nor saying disparaging remarks about the clerk, but I would like to hear from the city clerk now, where we are, what we're doing, how this moves forward. Now, I know numbers are still coming in. I know there are a number of lawsuits as well that are out there, but in his position, he can certainly give clarity to where we are. I think part of the issue is the state has a statute and it reads a certain way, and under the Faulkner Act, there's a statute that reads a certain way. In the state, I think it is, they do the runoff under the Faulkner Act. It's the highest 3 vote getters. Highest 3 vote getters for at large would be Crystal Feliciano. No, let me read them in the order so they came in. Highest was Yasminelli Gonzalez, was the highest vote getter. Second was Jazzy Edwards, and then third was our sister Crystal Feliciano. They would be the 3 leading vote getters for at large. So I think they're going to be solidified to move right into position. I'm not sure. I think they're going through that now. But again, This is why the clerk's position is so important. He should be out. He should be doing a press conference. He should be doing a press release to lay out these details. So why? The same public you came on and talked to me about, beloved, that part of the apathy is they don't understand. And when you don't understand something in communities like ours, or really or just across the board, you oftentimes stay away. So it's absolutely essential that those in positions of power lay out what we're doing, why we're doing it, how we're doing it, so people can have an understanding and clarity about not only their role in moving things forward, but how things move forward, so that they can increase the participation. If you're not clear on what we're doing, you're more inclined to stay away from it, and your lack of participation hurts us as well. So I think we're going to have at least 2 runoffs in our North and South wards. The mayor solidified himself to move forward. But again, let me just tell you how deeply rooted this pain is and this disconnect is. When I ran for mayor 4 years ago, the count was 39,000 registered voters, somewhere in that range. Less than 9,000 voted. And you just gave numbers that are right in that same framework again. So you have to ask yourself, why isn't in that equation, where are those 31,000 registered voters? Why are they not coming to the polls? Why are they not participating? Because you and I have had how many phone calls, conversations, community forums where people screamed about this council and the way they carried themselves these last 4 years. That voter count should have came out. But what is happening, and no one wants to talk about it, people have lost faith in the process, and people are tired of being disappointed. So we have to go out, educate, empower, and engage and show people that, yes, the system works when we work it, but we must work it year round, not just when we start the election cycle and end it, but year round, we've got to be engaged in this process. So again, as long as 31,000 voters are staying home, but they could participate, we got monumental work to do.
Another in that same article in the Trentonian, I'm gonna read this to you because it's from one of the former Dwayne Harris, who's a former clerk there. It says a former Trenton City clerk reached out to the Trentonian to clarify after a story ran questioning which standard would be used in the 2022 election for council at large. Dwayne Harris said the Faulkner Act stipulates that the races with more than one seat available, such as Trenton City Council at large street seats, go to the top 3 vote getters, regardless of percentages. And he quotes here NJSA 40:698-1.62, which is, of course, the statute, here 40 statute. The number of candidates for council member equal to the number of places to be filled in the council receiving the greatest number of votes shall be elected, Harris said. Yep. This was reviewed and hashed out by myself, the law director, and his legal team, and was the uncontested standard applied in 2018. So I think right there you have some precedents set for how the city's supposed to move forward. And the same thing you said about the highest free vote getters. You have Nelly Gonzalez with 2,764 votes, 22.62% of the vote. Jossie, actually, Crystal Feliciano in second, 22,221, 18.18%. And then Jossie, 1,942, 15.89%, which are the 3 top vote getters for the at-large seats.
Right. And I think I'll say 2 points here so we can move on. One, Mr. Harris was an amazing clerk. And the reason why I say that, when I ran for mayor, I was there with my campaign manager, but there were a lot of intricacies I did not know. He held no least in 6 forums, right? Walking the mayoral candidates through the process. And he waited after he gave us clear and concise instructions, petitions, accounting, all the paperwork. He walked us through all the candidates. He walked us through it. Then he did one for at large. Then he did one for the ward rep. So you left out of there with a clear mental picture of not only what your assignment was, but you also knew you had the clerk as a reference point for clarity if you had any issues. I'm going to tell you, he was an amazing professional, and I really respected how he helped. He would have already had 2 press conferences updating on where we are, where we're going, how we're going to get there. And that's really what you need now. I like the clerk that we have. He's very professional, but I think he's still learning on the fly with something of this magnitude on what needs to be done, and he doesn't want to put misinformation out there. But I think you can also work with the county clerk, Mrs. Paula, and make sure your points are in place, so you can educate people. Because again, I don't know what the date is. I think it's November 15th. If you're talking about a runoff December 6th, shouldn't people know something about that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I would think so. I
And
would
I
think
would
so.
just say this too.
I
close
would
it
think
out.
so.
Yeah, I would just say this. Two of those people who are the leading vote getters are educators in our school system.
Yes.
And
Yes.
when they get on council, I'm going to be charged and challenging them to make the school district a part of all that they do. Because to me, we've never had a candidate on council do that. They talked it, but nobody really made our school system its number one priority.
And so now I'm hearing you say, and one of the pillars that you mentioned was holding folks accountable. You said elected officials and accountability. So now is an opportunity for us, those who voted for those candidates and those who maybe voted for other candidates, to hold Yazzie, Nelly, and Crystal, who we are thinking right now, based on what we know, will be the next three at-large council women, if you will. Should we hold them accountable?
Right. And I mean, that's really where we are. I said to you earlier, most of us that do come out and vote, and then we go back to sleep. No, after you select or elect who you want to be in that seat, now the work begins. What is your vision? What do you need me to help you with? How can we support? Like, again, I think one of the things you want to talk about, we haven't gotten to it, the mayor. Now knowing that he's in the seat for 4 more years, listen, the biggest clarion call was the council's in your way. Okay, they're not in your way no more. And I saw him at a mural unveiling the other day, and I said to him, whatever you need me to do, however you need me to do it, I'm with you. Because we've got to move our city forward. I didn't run, so I wasn't in your way. There needs to be no pettiness. You know what I do. You know what you need me to do. Let's put the vision out there. Begin to let council get in and embrace the vision and have the community, because that's what good governance is. It's the mayor and the administration, the council, and then the people. 3 components working for one thing, a better Trenton. And we've never really had that. This is an opportunity too.
I mean, you hit the nail on the head, man. You hammered that one. Is that, with a Gutierrez second term, should citizens expect an immediate improvement in the relationship and moving the mayor's agenda forward? Because the council is there to move the agenda forward as long as it's in order with the strategic planning for the city and good for the people.
No doubt.
And then also the second part of that question: what should the priorities be for the city's council for the first 100 days? So let's start with the first one in terms of relationship with the mayor. I think you pretty much addressed that already.
Yeah, but I'll go even further, because I know he's going to watch this, or somebody in his cabinet. He needs to do community forums. I'm going to lay the vision out there for him, right? He needs to do community forums on all 4 sides of the city, and he needs to lay out what he's going to be working on, what he's going to be proposing, what he's looking to take our city forward with the educational system, with economic development, with public safety, every area of infrastructure, every area of social development. He needs to lay his vision out. If the council was your biggest barrier and obstruction, hey, they're gone now, right? So now you need to getting busy with this work. So the relationship, which means at the root word, to relate, to interact, to add on, he should lay out the vision in those community forums, and he should also be listening so that people can actually say what's on their mind, talk about the pressing issues. And I'll tell you, by doing that, once they solidify who the council people are, when he does it in all 4 wards, he should have the ward rep there, and he should have the at-large rep there. This is how you build a comprehensive movement going forward. And I'll open up each one for him so I can ignite the fire. He can lay the vision, and we can move together, because everybody's got a role to play, right? And then to your second point, when you start talking about what are those priorities, I mean, if he didn't get them done in the first 4, shouldn't he already have those ready, right? With his directors lined up, ready to execute the task at hand, so that we can hit the ground running and build a credibility where people will feel like, well, you know what? Government does work. You know what? These people do care. Like right now, I'll give you a perfect issue. People are calling my phone, inboxing me about leaf pickup. And we've got to be able to address that issue. There's got to be a centralized number to call. There's got to be a process that's laid out so people know when I call this number, these things are going to happen, which means the process works. I did my part in the process, and then I continue by making this work in a continuous space and place. But if you keep calling and asking and trying to work to make the city forward, you get disappointed, and that fuels the apathy you open this conversation about. If you keep trying to care, and those who have been elected, those who have been put in place to carry our voice in those critical meetings we can't go into, like when I talk to you, I tell you about what's on my mind. I don't sit in executive session when the school board meets. You do. But I tell you, hey, bro, I'm looking at this, this, and this. So you'll have an understanding of what the streets are saying. Now you have the craft and responsibility to shape the resolutions with the body of the board where we can as a community go. That's you guys' job to do that. But we trust you to do the right thing because you're our representatives, you're our voices. But because we engage in dialogue, I know you're listening. So when you go in that room, guess what? I go in that room. So that's what has to happen on city government. And until we address that, people are not going to vote. People are not going to come out. People are not going to participate. And as long as we're carrying the weight of 31,000 registered voters who didn't show up and won't show up, we can't win. I'm telling you now, we can't win.
Well, I thank you so much, Darren Freedom Green, longtime Trenton activist, public speaker, and former mayoral candidate. Civic engagement is so very important, man. You laid out the 4 pillars and the 4 things that we need to focus on, 5 critical areas, as Dr. Martin Luther King shared. I just want to let people know we've been listening to Trenton Talks, TV radio broadcast on True Heart TV, sponsored by WIMG 1300 AM, WPHY Verizon Channel 28. We've been discussing this evening Trenton municipal election and the next steps as we move forward with a new slate of elected officials, reappointed, re-elected mayor to a second term, and also as we deal with, this elected board that was voted on by voters on the referendum, how we move our city forward. So I thank each and every one of you for listening this evening. You can catch us on radio at 7 p.m. on Tuesdays on WIMG 1300 AM. You can catch it on TV on PHY Verizon Channel 28 on Thursdays at 11 p.m. We'll be back here next week at 5:30 p.m. We'll have on the broadcast a good friend of ours that Freedom mentioned, Gene Bowie, talking about Mercer County Community College, his role with New Jersey African American Chamber of Commerce, and how we're revitalizing Mercer County Community College opportunities for citizens to get certifications. A lot of them are free. There's money there. So we were having that conversation about how we can revitalize economic development in terms of employment opportunities for folks. Like you said, Freedom, to make, maybe they making 40, 50 now, make 60, 70 with a certification and be able to build back our city and let folks know that they can make a difference in our city as we engage in them. So I appreciate you being on the broadcast this afternoon. It won't be the last time. We're going to continue with those community conversations and all the work that's required of us to do. I thank you so much, man. Appreciate you being on the broadcast this evening.
All right, bro. Take care, beloved.
All right. God bless you.
Take care.